This is legitimately one of the weirdest reviews I've ever done. Yes, I know. This is also a weird place to be doing the review from. Don't look at me like that. Good afternoon, welcome to Turbo Tortoise Tech. If you're new here, I'm Reese of the 4-piece variety of Wooks Triple XL. 9800 X3D. If you don't already know, it's the best gaming CPU. There's something that I really wanted to show that I'm still going to be able to show with this. This isn't the best performance for the CPU by a country mile. So before you come at me like, but actually, if you use this memory and then you didn't do your test in a heat wave, that would be even better. I'm aware. I'm well aware that this is less than ideal. We have plans for next year to make things far more ideal because there's no real point in having a CPU of this kind of power being tested with these kinds of components, especially when my CPU cooler has probably broken. I'm pretty sure that the impeller that sits inside of the pump is cooked because of my own failure to build it properly as I should have from the beginning. Anyway, let's just have a look at the test bench and we'll take it from there. We do have an X870-P. I do have a Gen 5 NVMe, the G560 Genuine from all Klevv's. 850 watt gold PM850D Deepcool. And then we've got, like I said, that H100. The RAM is the other big problem. It's 6000 megahertz, CL36, and then the TRAS latencies, etc., are 38, which is very slow. We need flat 30 to get the most from this. I also didn't do the curve optimizer, and I was already about 80% done through the benchmarks when I realized that that was the case. And then I just committed to, you know what, I'm going to do everything again when I have the right RAM and when I have a proper cooler and it's not a 31 or 32 degree heat wave in Johannesburg, South Africa. And then I'll be able to effectively show the performance and stuff. In any case, we're still going to go through it one by one. So let's just get straight into it. So here are the benchmarks that I did manage to do. Now, the 13600K, the set that's on the right hand side over here, was done pre the microcode update. So this was the absolute fastest that this could possibly go with a good cooler on it, a cooler that wasn't broken at least, and I got really good results. There's something I'll show you though with the Firestrike, which will then blow everything here out of the water and into a completely different proportion. Let's start off with obvious crazy performance increase. So RDR2 between these two, if we put them side by side, maximum FPS, but look at the minimum and look at the average. That's the TLDR for this. Both of these are running that same 3070 Ti Suprim X that you saw on the test bench, okay? It's exactly the same GPU. It's literally exactly the same GPU. I've never opened it. It's completely stock, that thing, and it's just in its gaming mode, not in the silent mode. Of course, we're going to run it in the gaming mode because duh. But let's show something a little bit on the Monka S side. Here's a good example of that. So there we go. There we go. Slower. Same amount of RAM. Something weird happening with the sharing, and I think that's for the built-in GPU because you now have that with 9800 X3D. But yes, identical GPU. Literally the exact same GPU. Slower. We're gonna look at Cyberpunk, because I think this one was also slower. Oh no, but this was different settings, so I can't even really show you that. Dota 2 should be exactly the same. Oh wait, yeah, it would just open it up like that. Let's just Windows side by side. There we go. Much slower. And the point of this is that the cooling of the CPU and the RAM really is going to make a huge difference between these two. This good RAM memory, bad memory. So even though in general it will be faster, but let me just prepare the Firestrike thing and I'll be right back.
Few moments later.
Okay, so part one of this is to look at the raw result. It's still better than average for this CPU. Well, actually, it's the best score for this CPU and GPU combo, which is kind of crazy to me. You can see the boost clocks and stuff were really, really good. Look at the temps, dudes. I'm sitting at 73 degrees because that cooler is kaput. Look at this, 95 with the 240 strap to it. That is, okay, don't change screen. I'm busy here, flipping thing. 96 degrees. Okay, you can see that with my big head in the way. So 96 degrees, bro. That's wild. And then 97 on the command test. Can you stop changing window, please? I'm trying to make a point over here. Look at the GPU temp throughout. 60s. So even in the heat wave, the GPU is running beautifully, right? Now let me do a comparative online with the other scores and I'll show you some magic. Luckily, because I test everything with the same GPU, we can do really long, broad comparatives between all of the best gaming CPUs you could hope to buy. You've got 14700K in here, you've got 14600KF, 7900X, 13900K, this 13600K, which we've had on the test bench. These two processors came out of the review kits with the highest bin CPUs you can possibly get. And there's a really, really noticeable result over here where only the 14700K was better. And that's on this combined test over here. Even this 9700X couldn't quite get to the combined test. You can see the physics test is way behind. It's way behind because the cooler RAM, this was with a negative offset, and same thing here. Take these with a pinch of salt. This was with a negative offset with better RAM and better cooling, and that's where you get those final little percentages. Same thing with the 14700K. I had this with a 360mm, not a broken H100 with a popped impeller. And it's 3 FPS, dudes. It's 3 FPS. It's unreal how good that is. If we go to the graphics card and the processor over here, you're going to see very similar. This was obviously tested way colder, so you're getting better average clocks and stuff out of it. In general, they are pretty flat, and you could say these were on the worst sort of spec with this 13900K. This is a much newer result. It was the best one that I got with this 3070 Ti 13600K combo. But if we go down here to processor, look at that. It's a 10-degree difference on average temperature for the CPU. So this thing, while cooking with slow RAM, is still comparable to some of the best CPUs in the world. That's flipping ridiculous, okay? The Ryzens in general do give better temperatures overall. That's just gonna be a default. These things get toasty. That was actually really good for that CPU. That was with a 360mm rad as well when I did that review. TLDR here, look at this. Look at this temperature. It was through the roof, dudes. Through the roof on the CPU. It was not having a good time. The cooler that I've got on here is, yeah, you can see that. I was just double checking with the framing. It's unreal how fast this processor will go even when it's cooking. It's literally cooking. The only score here that's faster is this one over here from the 9700X, and I overclocked it. So an overclocked 9700X was the only way I could beat an overheating CPU. Let's do round 2 of this. And then for time spa, basically exactly the same thing. You can see these are still, some of them very old, about a year old, some of these tests. So we can assume maybe some of them would have been tweaked. GPU temps, almost the same across the board. This was tested very cold day, is basically the TLDR for that. But this processor, this poor processor, it was the hottest out of all of them. And that was literally, and as a result, look at the average clock frequency compared to that. That's a huge offset. So yes, if you want to go fast with your 9800X3D, make sure you get 6000 MHz CL30 with your other latencies, your TRAS, your TGAS, all of that sort of stuff is also going to need to be at 30. That's, for those of you who don't know, TLDR simply for RAM is it's got a latency to start its process, it then searches a row and a column and then returns the data. Those are basically the processes that it's doing. And so obviously the shorter time that it can do that per higher clock cycle, the overall faster the performance. That's why both are important. You can have 8000 megahertz, but if you've got a latency of 80 milliseconds, it's basically worthless. And that's exactly what's happening over here, unfortunately, is the TLDR. But an overheating, heat waved system with bad RAM is still faster or as fast as like some of the best gaming CPUs out there in the world. And these are the best. These are the creme de la cremes. 13600K, 14600K, 14700K, 7900X, 5800X 3D, 9700X. These are the best of the best of the best, and they still, this is within spitting distance of being and better than in most cases while overheating. That's nothing short of incredible. Now, what does this mean for the future of the CPU on the channel? This is going to become our new test bed. Uncle Evetech has very kindly sponsored it to us on Turbo Tortoise Tech. And so what I'm going to do is make sure that we get the correct components. We're going to upgrade the cooling. I might go to a 280 or a 360 mil as our new baseline so that we don't run into that problem again. However, I don't think I'm going to need that. I think some of these new 240s, like the Core Liquid from Cooler Master, is going to do an exceptionally good job, as I've seen on the 13600K, which is a thirsty boy, and that's where our H100 100 used to be. That's what I used on the 13600K results for the most part. There was one or two where I think I strapped a 360 mil rad to it and then tweaked it and gave it its absolute best, and that's all you're really going to get out of it. And in some of those cases, I was at the cutting edge for these results. That's the big plus about 3D Mark, is that comparison that you can see versus other similar systems, to make sure that yours is as poked and tweaked as humanly possible. And as I said, this is not nearly the best that I can put forward for the CPU. I can do a lot faster. I can make things go a lot faster. So having realized that that was the thing, I thought I would just put out a preliminary piece to show you why this thing is actually a little bit special. What they did very differently with this, and the reason they're calling it true second gen 3D V cache, is because they enhanced the cooling on the internal of the chip by layering it differently and making sure that you can cool that 3D V cache section better, and then unlocking way better performance on the memory as well. We've seen up to 8800 megahertz. So is the 9800X 3D the best gaming CPU? Unequivocally. Do I like my results? Not at all. I think I can do way better, and I want to give the 13600K a full new set of test bench results as well to compare against that, I would say more evenly, before we finally do a replacement. So expect early next year a secondary follow-up on this as we launch the 9800X 3D test bench, because that is going to be our then baseline, which will mean when I do GPU tests and such, they are going to be significantly better than they were before, because now instead of having like the second or third or fifth best CPU, we're going to have the absolute best on the test bench. That's going to unlock Gen 5 testing for me as well, with PCI Express NVMEs on Gen 5, which we've already done somewhat. But yeah, I've got a couple things that I need to neaten up and clean up before we go full head first into all of that. Anywho, I do hope you have enjoyed this preliminary look, and that your respect for 3D Mark Firestrike as a benchmark is significantly improved. That combined test really is a massive way of showing the capability of the CPU to do both wireframing in game, which we see in Tarkov. That's a really good example of this, because of all the wireframes that it has to support in an environment like Streets, for instance, which generally destroys PCs. The X3D is really a huge advantage to that. AMD just really seems to be prime right now. They've put all of the best stuff into kind of their wheelhouse for the most part, and they're showing the greatest potential. That's what that Firestrike combined test really does, is it shows potential, because each platform and each engine is really coded with bias. They really are. Like Unity is still an Intel mega house. If you're playing Tarkov, I would still say get a 14600K. If that's going to be your primary focus, is to get performance in Tarkov, stay with Intel. It's coded for that platform. A 12600K keeps up with most of the X3D chips, but in general, for general gaming performance, this is the king. The multi-threading performance on Cinebench and stuff I can't really show, because it's not a fair test, because yeah, that cooler is still limping. But like I say, there will be a follow-up to this. There will be a part 2. This is part 1. It's just a tale of two benchmarks, really. Firestrike and TimeSpy really do encapsulate DirectX 11 and 12 gaming and your maximum overall potential. When I first launched this channel, I did 20 different gaming benchmarks, and I found that the average between 20 was within 1% of what I would see on a Firestrike benchmark. The average across 20 games was the same as basically Firestrike. So it's just a really, really good benchmark. You can get it for free as well, so you don't have to go and buy. You just got to sit through an awful demo. So if you do see it, put it on your wish list. If you see it on sale for $200 or $300 and you're tinkering with your PC quite often, it's a really, really good thing to have. Anywho, that is all I have for you on the 9800 X3D. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please do hit us up with a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the flip side.